see how much cack there is on the roads this time. By the time I got up to Thirsk on Tuesday, the bike was so filthy that the technician said, "Oh, what's it like off-road then?" I said, "I haven't been off-road." He says, "Well, it looks like you've been off-road." Thought, blimey, that were A1. I don't think A1M qualifies as being off-road. Anyway, it's round here where there's that much building work going on in and around Leeds these days, because we're just sort of coming into Leeds now. Not the centre, obviously the sort of northwest of Leeds. A little place called Menston coming up now. But there's that much building work going on, there's just bloody filth all over the roads. And they don't sweep it like they're supposed to, they don't. Anyway, that's another moan over with. Oh, here's another one while I'm at it. So, I was listening to a certain YouTube vlogger's podcast the other day, and he had a certain other YouTube vlogger on there who just got a new bike. A new adventure bike, and so I had a look at this grand unveiling of this new adventure bike, and a new term came up. I've not heard this term before, you might have heard it, but it was a 3-box wanker. And it said, this vlogger, "I'm not a 3-box wanker," which I think is basically to say a 3-box wanker or a 2-box wanker, which is what I am this morning. It's somebody that when they're out for a ride, which has got nothing to do with touring and carrying gear, keep the panniers on. Well, I am that 3-box and 2-box wanker, because half the time I can't be arsed taking them off. A lot of times I think that certain bikes look better with them on, so why not? A number of times, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but a number of times I've been out on bike and I thought, oh, I'll just nip and get a bit of shopping on the way home. You know, because like your mindset's sort of not always fully tuned to the fact that you're on a bike. And I've done it before. I've gone into Morrison's or somewhere and I've come out with a bag full of groceries, and I suddenly realise I'm on a bike with no bleeding panniers on. And you end up mincing your way home with a bloody Morrison's carrier bag on your handlebars, looking like a right cock. So I usually leave them on, but I didn't think it made me a 2-box wanker or a 3-box wanker. But fair enough. So I'll just say, you ride your bike however you want, and if you want to ride it with your boxes on, it don't make you a wanker. And I'm not so sure, without wishing to be too controversial, I'm not so sure that one biker should be referring to another category of bikers in such pejorative and derogatory terms. However much embroidered into the folklore of biking that notion that people that keep panniers on where they don't need to are to be vilified. And labelled in such a manner. Anyway, so I am that 2-box, 3-box wanker, depending on whatever particular day of the week it might be. I do take them off occasionally. But don't listen to any of this bollocks you hear about filtering and what have you. You see, here's a different take on it. If you normally ride without panniers, and then after a few months of doing so, you go on a trip, so you put your panniers on, you're far more likely to come unstuck, aren't you? Far more likely to think that you're still riding without panniers and to clip somebody or something. Whereas if it's your default position to ride your bike with panniers on, then your spatial awareness should already be finely attuned to that state of affairs, and that should mean you are less likely to have any pannier issues on your journey. Right, so that's my 2 pence. Now then, by way of apology, that last video, that review of this bike, camera were at a right cock end of an angle, wasn't it? There were no horizon whatsoever. I'd put a different fitting bracket on this helmet for the GoPro Hero 7 at the front on the chin mount, and it wouldn't allow the camera to pitch back sufficiently far to include the horizon and a bit of sky, so you couldn't really see where I was going. That said, the video wasn't about where I was going, the video was about the bike, but a couple of people said, well, we'd like to see where you're going and all. So, fair enough. So I'm hoping the camera angle here now is pitched at the appropriate angle to so as you can see a bit of the bike and a bit of where I'm going. So we are just on the Otley Shevin at the moment. Otley Shevin, quite a famous landmark, very popular with walkers, dog walkers, etc, etc. It's a big piece of elevated land. Leeds Bradford Airport sits on top of it, which makes Leeds Bradford Airport the highest airport in the UK. And it's a very scenic part of the world. And of course it's occasionally famous for that joke regarding courting couples. Where were I? GPS just came into my logo saying she'd deconnected and then immediately said she'd reconnected. Where were I? Oh aye, so that old joke, yeah, when courting couples used to go out in countryside for a bit of slap and tickle. Back in days of old, I don't know if they still do that anymore. And it always used to give rise to the question, have you taken your girlfriend up the Shevin? Yeah. Yeah, where have you been? Have you taken your lass up the Shevin yet? That's a perfectly innocent question. Now, Civvy, we're hanging a left here and this takes us down something called Pool Bank. which, bearing in mind we're on top of the cheving at the moment, you would expect exiting the cheving to involve going down a bank. So yeah, Poole Bank, which takes us in, believe it or not, to a little village called Poole, and that'll be Poole in Wharfdale in West Yorkshire, not Poole in Dorset, or Poole anywhere else for that matter. So now this baby's had a first service, can let rip a little bit more. Prior to the service, I was consciously keeping the RPM below 5,000, but now I'll be able to explore the bike's true potential. But for what's essentially a 900cc mid-size adventure bike, this has got some real shove, as you would expect from KTM's. Like even in the big adventure bikes, it's the KTM's and the Ducatis that have the performance edge over the BMWs and the Triumphs and the Honda. And that gap has narrowed slightly over the years. I know the BMW GS, the 1250 shift cam engine, is now 135 brake horse, I think it is. I think the Triumphs, the new Triumph Tiger 1200s are 140 odd, aren't they? But the KTM, the 1290 Super Adventures, 170 odd, and the Ducatis are 170 odd, aren't they? So they've still got the edge. And so that same principle would seem to apply in the mid-weight adventure bike range, which was one of the reasons that I got this rather than a Tiger 900 or a F850 GS or something like that. Because this baby flies when you open her up. So yeah, if you do watch that video, I apologise for the lack of scenery due to my cock up with the GoPro mount. But hope it was certainly informative in terms of first impressions of this bike and the spec, because there's a walk around at the end of that video where I give you the full specifications of the machine.